We are live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Metaphysical Bible Hangout. This is the weekly Bible study for understanding principles, and I'm excited to be here. Tonight's workshop is actually going to be really special. This is an area that I think is relatively new to me, meaning I probably have heard it at some point in time, but this time around I heard it. And I am posting in the chats, in the respective chats, the worksheet that you're going to need for the workshop. So, need this worksheet. Please click to download. So what we're going to do is work with a blank a chart. It's called a circular ideals chart. It is a recreation of the chart in the chapter. We're working from chapter 16 in your life, why it is the way that it is and what you can do about it. And the name of the chapter is Setting Your Ideals in Accord with Spirit. And so I'm really excited about this conversation. I think this is going to be a powerfully transformational conversation. It has been for me. And I'm gonna pull up a couple of things. I got a few resources I want to share with you tonight. And so we should just go ahead and get started because there's a lot of material to cover and not a whole lot of time to get there. I want to make sure I fit as much as possible inside the hour. So the link that I posted is a link to the chart and a blank copy of the chart. So you're going to need that for tonight. So you're going to need that chart, and there's a PDF, and then you're going to need like a pen or a pencil so that you can fill in the chart. Oh, I've got to do this double thing. Hang tight. Let me get this correct. Okay. One more again. So the conversation we're having tonight is, what are your ideals? What are your ideals? And it's such a powerful conversation. I am. I, what is my request of you? My request is that you listen with an open heart, because what the Spirit has to say to you, I think, will be transformational for you. And the name of the chapter is Setting Your Ideals in Accord with Spirit. And it's about setting up ideals that align with God, that are in line with what God wants for your life. And so we'll go through that process together. So I just want to take a pulse, because so important that we stay on, that we get this YouTube algorithm jumping off. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to do just a quick 60-second check. What are the ideals that drive your everyday behavior? What are the ideals that drive your everyday behavior? If you had to identify what that is, what would you say? What are the ideals that drive your everyday behavior? If you can just give me 60 seconds, you can post that in the comments. What are the ideals that drive your everyday behavior? I know that I have an ideal to be in charge of my life. That's really super important to me. And so the way that that manifests is with the time that I go to sleep, with the time that I get up in the morning, the activities that I engage in the morning. Those are really, really important to me. I have a high ideal on spiritual development and spiritual growth. It is probably the number one priority in my life, and so I reach for that more often than I reach for anything else. It has been the true difference maker in my experience. But I'm asking you, what are the ideals that drive your everyday behavior? What ideal are you fulfilling? Got about 7 seconds. All right. And time. All right. Let me see where everybody is. Checking the chat. Uh, okay. Oh, Constance, can you see the link? I thought you could see the link. Maybe you can't. It should say content uploads. It's the hyperlink. She said, to be alive, awake, aware at all times, and to be the truth that I teach. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. That is a high priority for me. That is an ideal for me. Anybody else? Let me check the chat. Uh, cool. And those of you, Olga, Andrea, I want to make sure you guys get that link because you're going to need that blank worksheet for the conversation that we're having tonight. Andrea says seeking oneness, and Olga says financial stability. Yes, 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 yes. Awesome. Okay, great. Get back to the PowerPoint. Cool. So, got a couple of announcements, and then we will get into um, opening prayer, value and power of setting high ideals. We'll also look at then we'll go through the workshop, setting your ideals in accord with spirit, and then Q&A. And of course, please ask questions throughout because that is the whole point of any of this is that we get our questions answered. I always think it's important that you know why this is such a priority for me and why I love doing this. I am convinced that we all have several Fifth Symphonies in us. That's a reference to Beethoven and the fact that he uh, uh, composed that music, that piece of music more than 250 years ago, and yet today any kid anywhere, child, would know that song. It's such a recognizable tune, and that it has survived. And I believe the Spirit wants to express through each of us in that same way, according to our gifts and our talents. We may not be musicians, we may not be artists, but that does not have anything to do with God wanting to express through us. You may create health products, or maybe you're a fitness person, or you're you're a writer, or but you create in different ways. Maybe you're an inventor, you have an engineering background, but that doesn't change the lavish, abundant way that the Spirit wants to express through you. And so my intent is to deposit a single idea in you that if it takes hold, it will shift your entire life. And I always reference the film Inception because, one, I love the movie, but two, that's what the movie is about. It is about this idea of, can you plant an idea in someone's mind and get them to accept it as their own? Because once they accept it as their own, it shifts everything. And so this is such a powerful film. I encourage you to watch it. Call me if you want to do like a mutual viewing, because I love it that much. But that is really what I want to get across, is that you are divine and the Spirit wants to flow through you in the most amazing way imaginable, that God wants to blow your mind. And I want you to be open to it, because I know my life is better if God is blowing your mind. That's how confident I am in it. This Bible Hangout is free, but it does cost to produce, and a gift of any size is greatly appreciated. And you can do that right at paypal.com. You can go to revsherri.com, and there's a link for PayPal, and it'll take you right there. I teach and practice the law of giving and receiving. I believe in the law of exchange, and that that the gift acknowledges the food that was received. And so I thank you in advance for however you decide to support the Bible Hangout. I want you to know that it makes a difference, and it means that this type of message can go around the world. This series has a couple of different components. There's the blog that comes out every Thursday, the Bible Hangout, which we're in tonight, and the Universal Law Library. This week's goodie is a classic. It is the audiobook of Thomas Troward's The Law and the Word. The Law and the Word. And the reason that I advocate studying the classics is because I want to know, do I come up with the same conclusions that Fillmore came up with? And perhaps I might read Troward, or you can go back further than that. Troward is a relatively recent antecedent. But I may come up with something entirely different, and so I cannot rest with just studying the people that I admire. I have to study who they studied, who they studied, who they studied, and because I may come up with something entirely different. I may go back and look at Marcus Aurelius's meditations and see something that nobody saw, because God wants to express through me uniquely. So I'm so excited to share this classic with you. It's an audiobook. So, audiobooks are awesome because many of us commute. And so you literally, I'm programming your drive to and from work for the next couple of months. Constance says she's a crocheter. Yes, 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 yes. And the Spirit wants to do something through you that is no less amazing than what was done through Beethoven or whomever. I'm throwing a Beethoven just because that song, we associate classical music with a certain group of people, and we don't associate it with poorer communities. And I marvel that this music that's associated with poor, with what we would call, wealthy communities, that anybody anywhere knows this tune. So that's the reason I reference that. Eve says, building a successful business for financial freedom. Yes, 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 yes. That link at the top, Eves, is for the worksheet that you're going to need for the conversation tonight. So make sure you get that. You may not know this, but I work with people one-on-one. It's actually one of the most fun things I get to do because I get to dial in personally on someone's life. And I have been working to make myself more valuable as a spiritual mentor. And I have really been cracking in my own life the thing that moves you off of your dime, the thing that causes you to take action. And so if you have been sitting on your potential, I won't say another word. If you have been sitting on your potential, resting on your assets, and you need someone who can lovingly hold you accountable and move you into a state of action, I encourage you to consider working with me. I have been doing so much studying, so much development, and it's for a particular reason. I'm inspired by the story of Moses, and I look to that story for strength. The reason that story inspires me is because Moses, before he could free the Israelites, he had to spend 40 years in the Midian desert freeing himself. He had to kick the shackles off of his own mind in order to teach other people how to kick the shackles off of their mind. And what I know is that you cannot teach what you do not know how to do. And so I'm grateful for just the breakthroughs that have been coming in my own experience, because I know that the way that translates is me being able to do that for you. And so if you're looking for the kind of spiritual mentor or coach, I stay away from that word because everybody uses that word, but spiritual mentor, that someone that holds you to a higher ideal, to reference tonight's conversation, let me be that person for you. I would love to support you in terms of your goals in that area. And so you can email me directly at Sherri@revsherri.com, and let's have a conversation and see if it's right for us to work together. The scripture for this series is, do not think that I have come to abolish the law. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. And that is Matthew 5:17. Let's just take a moment to relax. We've got something amazing happening here this evening, and I just give thanks and praise for the transformation in each of us. I thank God for what he's going to do tonight through us, and I just acknowledge the power that rests in each one of us, and I thank God because I know that we will not get up from this session the same, that the people we are right now will not be the people that we are in an hour, and I give thanks and praise for that. I'm grateful to God for that shift in consciousness. And I just bless this class. I bless everybody who's watching this class. And I thank God for the transformations that I know are going to happen. In the name and the nature of Jesus the Christ, I affirm that this is so, and so it is. And amen. So the value and power of ideals. And I think I mentioned before that, when I first looked at this chapter, I was like, because I had a negative connotation on ideals. When I thought about ideals, I saw it as people striving for perfection and leading very dissatisfied lives. Really did. That was like my initial reaction. And what I realized in looking at the chapter and saying, okay, where's the value in this? Where's the value? And then the spirit just dropped in my soul and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's that everybody has ideals. There's no such thing as not having ideals. What you find is that most people are unaware of their ideals. And for too many people, their ideals are equal to or less than their present circumstances. Everybody has them. Most people are unaware. And for many people, their ideals are equal to or less than their present circumstances. And we're going to talk about why that matters. So, first of all, just what are your ideals? I want to give a definition for ideals. Oh, I should have put that little cartoon up. Anyway, it's on the blog post. You'll need that. You'll also need to have the blog post up because I guess I should post that link too. You're gonna need the blog post up because you're gonna need to those. I'll read through the list that we're gonna be choosing from, but you'll probably want to have it in front of you as you're thinking about it. So I will post that link in just a second. So what are your ideals? When I use the word ideal is defined as a person or a thing that you regard as perfect. So what that might sound like if you spoke of someone that you love, you would say, you're my ideal of how a man or a woman should be. Does that help? So other words that can be substituted for the word ideal include perfection, paragon, epitome, shining example. So if you said to your husband or wife, you're my shining example of what a loving spouse should be. That's your ideal. Or if you said to your child or to someone that you admire, you really are the epitome of some positive quality. I think about Reverend Della, and Reverend Della was very much the epitome of potential and what she was able to do, because when she was in her 60s, am I saying that right? When she was in her 60s, she got touched by an angel. But even before then, she was, hold on, I'm posting the link to the blog post. Oops. All right, that's the link to the blog post so you guys will be able to pull the words up. When she was in her 60s, she got touched by an angel. And what she would do is that she would travel back and forth to Salt Lake City, Utah, where they shot Touched by an Angel. And she would work 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday. Then she would get on a plane and come preach Saturday night and come preach on Sunday morning. And she never missed a Sunday. Rain or shine, she never missed a Sunday. It was a very, very rare occasion when one of our assistant ministers would preach. And generally, if it would have been a situation where she just couldn't get back to LA, like she was snowed in Salt Lake City, or that she had an engagement where she had to leave LA too soon on a Sunday. But she preached every Sunday, full sermon, full service, present, accounted for. And this is in her 60s. And she continued, the show was on into her 70s. And so she was just the epitome of what the mind and the body can do when you're working in accord with God's will. And that she kept a schedule that would tire out some 20-year-olds. And this was every week, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Not to mention the events and all the things that were going on at the church. And so she's present for all of that stuff that's going on. And then she's getting other roles besides Touched by an Angel. So all of that is going on. But she just maintained this standard of excellence. So it would be like you say to someone that you're the epitome of whatever that is. So I'm taking this time because I want to clarify what an ideal is, so that when we're having this conversation, what I'm saying makes sense. So what I realized is that the way that ideals had been talked about or that I had conceptualized them, they were negative for me. And I remember someone, I feel like I got like a little, well, I know they posted this meme on Facebook. You'll see it on the blog post. And when I first read the chapter, I thought about this meme, and it was a picture of a park bench, and there is a skeleton of a woman, and she's holding a purse, and she's sitting on the bench, and essentially she's died waiting. And the caption says, "Waiting for the perfect man." And so when I thought of when I conceptualized ideals, I thought of ideals in general in that way. And so the last thing I want to become for my business or anything in my life is the person for whom nothing is ever good enough, and I die reaching for this impossible ideal. And so when Bruce McArthur says, one of the most important steps in beginning to transform your life is to establish your ideals and then work diligently to achieve them, it's like, all right, Bruce, what you talking about? And what he says is that your ideals set standards for you, and they are excellent guides for choices which can transform your life. And I was like, okay, all right. But what about that woman that's been waiting for Mr. Right, and anyone that comes along is not good enough, and so she ends up dying, never having a relationship, right? And what I realized is that's when I began to say, okay, what's he trying to say? What's he trying to communicate? And what I realized that ideals provide a guide for changing our thinking. In the absence of an ideal, we show up for life as the person we have always been, which means we end up getting the same stuff we've always gotten. And so to build a new life, to build a better business, we have to change the way that we routinely think and feel every day. Otherwise, we continue along the same thought and feeling patterns that we've always had, and we create the same set of circumstances that we wish we could be free of. And so, by definition, the ideal always has to be greater than we are today because it's an ideal. Now, the way that we avoid the quest for perfection and adopt a holistic approach to setting high ideals is to stop reaching for an ideal and start thinking and acting from an ideal. And this may sound like semantics, but I promise you it's not. So reaching for puts it outside of you. It's not who you are. Thinking and acting from makes it an element of your character that you are releasing into expression. And so when you think about everything that you do in your business, the way you acquire new business, the way you send out invoices, how you respond to setbacks and challenges, who you interact with on a daily basis, the types of conversations you engage in on a daily basis, they continually remind you of where you are in your business. And so most people think equal to their circumstances. Most people think equal to a certain, which is why why it takes so long to change outer appearances, is because we think equal to our circumstances. And unless we adopt a better way of thinking, we can expect to keep the same circumstances in play. It is only when we endeavor to think better than our present circumstances that we can expect better results. So who are you being with everything that you do? And that's the question that we have to ask ourselves is, who am I being? And what words are good enough for me to speak, that I'm willing to have them be a regular part of my vocabulary? And sometimes we can have a very positive routine, but it's not moving us forward. And you remember the purpose of experience, or the purpose of life, is to grow. Trees don't, when they stop growing, they start to die. But as long as they're growing and producing more fruit, more leaves, or whatever it is that they produce, they continue to live. But whenever something stops living, it starts to die. So the purpose of existence is growth. So sometimes we can be in a really good routine. We can be in a really great place, right? This doesn't mean that you're like destitute and not doing anything with your life. you might actually be at a really nice plateau compared to everybody else around you. But the thing is that the nature of the spirit is to expand. That's the nature of God. Everything, you look at how God expresses through everything, through trees, through plants, through fish, through everything grows. Nothing grows down. Everything grows out. Everything expands. And so the thing that we have to begin to look at then is, am I in a great place, but it's time to grow and it's time to move? Constance says, Reverend Alice was former senior minister for Living Truth Center in Cleveland, Ohio. She's originally from Christ Universal Temple in Chicago. She said, Reverend Alice helped me to understand that when I was working the appearance of seeing someone as a health challenge and came to understand that the ideal way of living is perfect health from within, yet we all must come to that realization and express that in ourselves. Not sure if I said that right, but I was judging the outer appearance and confused because the teachings that were being expressed did not seem to be in jive with the living aspect of it. Got it. Yes. Hey, Phyllis. Phyllis says, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. Yes, people are consistent. And so the ideal then, it's to figure out, where is my ideal? And my ideal might be equal to or worse, less than my present circumstances. And that's what we want to get to and through tonight. So I mentioned this before, but everyone has a set of ideals that guide them. And what your ideals do is that they set the standard, they set the daily standard, right? What are the things that are part of your everyday? What things do you choose to do every day? What kinds of foods do you eat? What's the route you take to work? How do you go to work? Where do you work? That your ideals are the standard by which you make your choices. When you're hungry, and let's say that this is classic for me, you left the house, but you didn't prepare your lunch the way you wanted to. And so now you've got to go buy food. Where do you go buy food? Is that, oh, you know what, let me just go grab something convenient from a fast food place? Or, you know what, let me make the extra effort, go to Sprouts and get one of those healthier food options, right? It's like a roadmap which you use to guide you to your destination. Your ideals set the attitudes by which you live. I had a classic experience this morning. There was I was coming out of the gym, and there was an older a woman who was backing out of a parking spot, and she backed into me, and you heard this like crack, 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 crunch or whatever, right? And so I got out of the car. We drove around, and then we parked, and she was so worried when she got out of the car. And I went and looked at the front of my car, looked at the back of her car, said, there's no, nothing's wrong. We're fine or whatever. It wasn't like a smash. It just sounded worse than it was. And I was in a very chipper mood, like, we're good, everything is fine. And she was like, I'm so sorry, and hopefully you'll have a better day from here on out. And I'm thinking, I'm having a great day right now, right? Because your ideals set your attitude. Because even if the car had been smashed up, okay, the car is smashed up. That's a past event. I cannot go there and then jam up the entire day. One, I got to get ready for y'all. But second of all, I must keep the kind of attitude that moves me forward and not backwards. So your ideals, it's how are you being? I shared this with my prayer class. I had an experience where I backed into someone. This is a while ago, and same thing, no damage. And so I'm pulling around to park, and the person is through the roof and neck popping and oh, you think you this and I'm thinking, is this happening to me? Like, what twilight zone did I enter? And so I'm going in the restaurant, because we're both going into a restaurant, and I'm sitting at the table with my friend, getting ready to order and to eat, and the person comes over to my table with the same drama. And I don't lose my peace. I don't step out of line. I don't snap back. And so I actually, when she leaves, because I don't respond to what she's saying, when she leaves, I asked the waitress, I said, can you please bring me her bill? Let me pay for her bill. And so she tries that. I don't want anything from her. I don't want anything from her. And I'm like, wow, you just missed out on a free meal, sis. So the thing is your ideals, they determine your daily attitude. Can you keep your peace when somebody is in your face popping off? They determine your path and the direction that you move in consciousness, right? With what do you value? So what kinds of things do you consume? Who do you keep yourself around? Ideals control who and what you attract. They link your mind, body, and soul together, and they coordinate you from within. And so now the thing is that setting high ideals, what it does is it takes you off cruise control. And that's the reason that the high ideals are so important. And I said this earlier, many people operate with ideals that are equal to or lower than their present circumstances. What high ideals will do for you is change your mindset, which when you change your mindset, you change your life for the better. Now, I included a video that I thought was wonderful because there's a guy that I have been fangirling out on, two of them, Jesse Itzler and David Goggins. But what happens, and the video is on the website. What happens is that Jesse Itzler was actually a rapper from back in the day, but he also founded Marquis Jets and Zika the coconut water. And he's married to Sarah Blakely, who is somebody else that I fangirl out on. She's the creator of Spanx. So Jesse is a marathon runner, and he had been in a good routine. He was in a great place with his business. He had just sold Marquis Jet to NetJets for like a bunch of money. And so he was in a really, really great place. And he goes to do, I want to say it's Badwater, but I might have the race wrong, but it's a 100-mile race. And he was there as a team, and they're doing it as a relay. So different people are doing 10 miles and then passing the baton off. And there's this guy there, David Goggins, by himself with a lawn chair, a sleeve of crackers, and some water. And he is doing the 100-mile race by himself. And he suffers kidney failure and all kinds of other things because he didn't have the proper stuff with him. And yet he gets up and completes the 100-mile race. And so Jesse is watching this guy, and he's like, who is this guy? Like, what? And so he Googles him because he's interested in, I need to know him, because I need to be next to that kind of consciousness, right? I want to find out who that dude is. So he Googles him. He finds out that this guy is a former Navy SEAL who goes around the world doing these kinds of extreme events to raise money for the families of fallen SEALs. And he flies out to meet him and basically invites him to live with him and his wife for 31 days in New York City in December. This is years ago. And so he released a book called Living with the SEAL. It is the most hilarious thing you will read. It is funny, like I listened to it on audiobook, and I was in the bank or wherever I was, and I couldn't stop myself from laughing out loud. It's that funny. But what he talks about in the clip that I included is that David Goggins set an ideal that caused him to step up. And one of the first things that he did was that he, when he came to live with the Itzlers in that December month, I feel like it was like 05, 06, somewhere, but it was a while ago. When he came to live with them, the first thing he did, he said, okay, my condition is I'll train you, but you got to do whatever I tell you to do. And so they go down to the gym, and he says, I want to just kind of do a little fit test and see where you are. Let me see how many pull-ups you can do. And so he does, I don't know, let's say 8 or 9 pull-ups. He tells the story in the video. And then he's, arms are burning or whatever. And David's like, okay, let's wait 30 seconds. Now I do a couple more. And he gets like, 4 or 5, whatever. And there's like 30 seconds, and then, okay, give me some more. And he keeps going. And so, Jesse's like, I can't do anymore. He was like, well, we got 100 that you've got to do. And that really set the tone for the month. But it was this idea that you have more inside of you. And there are people that you can have next to you, and it can come in the form of a trainer, but it can also be in the form of a friend, of someone whose ideals are set at a level so much higher than yours that you've got to stand on your tippy toes to be next to them. And so this is the value of setting high ideals, is that if you have a high ideal, let's say in your health. Well, I had this experience, right? Because I'm doing this planks challenge. And I came home one Sunday. I was exhausted. It'd been a long day. I had a headache. I hadn't eaten right or whatever. And it was like, no, no, no. I have a value on health, and I made this commitment. And so it was midnight, and I was like, well, I don't know if this counts as the same day, but I'm pulling myself out of bed and I'm getting these planks done at 12:01 Sunday night. Again, the ideal will get you up, because the me, who I am, will be like, you know what? I'm going to just count this day as a loss. I don't know if I can count this day as one of my days. I will have had 30 out of 31 days. My point being that the ideals push you when you want to fall back into your routine, or when you want to do less than you're really capable of doing. And there are many ways to set them, that you can set them, but then you've got to have a way to hold yourself accountable to them. And being next to someone whose ideals are at or above the level where you want to go will help you make that kind of commitment to yourself. They'll be your accountability partner. One of the things that David says in the video, he says the thing about comfort zones is if you live in one for too long, that becomes your norm. And what we want is not to be in the comfort zone for too long, so that we do not get comfortable, but that we are continuing to grow as God designed us to grow. Now, this is a 5-step process. This first part, we're going to do a little, we'll do 120 seconds, and I'll do it guided so it doesn't sound like dead air. But we're going to do just a little meditation, a mindfulness meditation, and then I'm going to read a list of areas to you. And I want to, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. The meditations for step 2. So listen to the following list. I want you to choose an area that you want to make more joyous, and then write your selection on the circular ideals chart on the line marked number 1 in quadrant A. And I have a picture of this so you'll be able to see it. Your ideals for this area of your life will be entered on the upper right-hand quadrant of the chart. So if you listen, the area that you want to work on: spouse, self, children, job, finances, health, spiritual growth, a relative, recreation, social life, family, time, school, church, education. Now, there may have been an area that you didn't hear that you want to focus on, and I would say choose that. I chose finances to work on. So what you would do is you would write finances in that upper column. So if you see the picture on the screen, quadrant A, and then there's a number 1, and you write the word finances. Have a little arrow pointing to it. Right? So that is how you do that. So you choose the area that you want to work on, and then the next 3 steps that we're going to do are to basically establish the spiritual ideal, the mental ideals, plural, and the physical ideals, plural. And this is a process, right? So just we're going to finish quadrant A tonight, but your job is to do it for every area of your life where you want to create greater joy. So you may print out maybe 5 or 6 sheets, or maybe you may print out 3 or 4 sheets where you're completing this for several areas of your life, but you're taking the time to establish what is the ideal for me in this particular area. Now, like I said, there are many ways that you can set an ideal. One of them is to get next to someone. We're going to take a more gentle approach than, you don't have to have a Navy SEAL live in your house. that you can do it a little bit more kinder to yourself. Step number 2, So now what we want to do is select the spiritual ideal. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to attune ourselves to spirit. And so we'll do this as I'll do it as a guided meditation for 60 seconds. And then I'm going to read, after that, I'm going to read off the list of fruits or seeds as McArthur described it. And then you're just going to ask yourself what your ideal should be. And you can either choose from the list, or you may come up with a word that's not on the list. And then when you found it or selected it, you're going to write it on the circular ideals chart in the center labeled spiritual ideal. So first, let's do the 120 seconds. And so if you could just take a moment to just relax and be here now. Relax and be here now. Recognize that there is only one power, there is only one presence. And that power and presence breathes itself as you right now. And so what I want you to do is to concentrate on your breath. And continue to breathe normally. But notice the feel of your breath as it comes through your nostrils, down your throat, or nasal passages, and into your lungs and abdomen, and then back out. And just pay attention to that on the inhale, what that feels like to have the breath of God flow in to you. And then as you exhale back out, you flow back out through your nose. And then I want you to bring your attention to the feel of your skin against the surface, whether you're sitting or laying down or however you are comported, and feel that underneath you, supporting you. Continue to breathe normally. And then take your attention back to your breath. And notice the feel of your breath in and out through the nostrils. Thanks, God. And that's our time. Okay. Now listen to these words, and you're listening for which one feels like it makes the baby jump. That's what you're listening for. Love, truth, hope, persistence. Again, you're listening for what is the spiritual ideal in the area that I want to work on. Patience, faith, goodness, contentment, mercy, gentleness, kindness, self-control, brotherly love, fellowship, consistency in acts and speech, forgiveness, meekness, peace, obedience, humbleness, harmony, understanding, selflessness, joy. And so whatever word you choose, or perhaps there's one that's not on the list that you choose, and you write it in the center circle labeled spiritual ideal, which is the one that's right for you as the central spiritual ideal that you are reaching for. I chose something that wasn't on the list. I chose the word order. And I originally, as I was going, I did this earlier before as I was preparing for you guys. At first I settled on peace, and then I started thinking. I said, no, you know, order is heaven's first law. I think, and if I have order, order relaxes the mind. So if I establish order, order is automatically going to bring the peace. And so I chose the word order. You may choose something different. So you're choosing your spiritual ideal. Now, what I want you to notice is that the word ideal is singular. So this word is going to apply to all of the quadrants. So order will, for me, will become the central spiritual ideal in every area that I want to bring more joy in. Let me see if there are any questions. Any questions on this? Oh, Alita says, me too, order. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Phyllis says, this is the reason I hang out with you because of your high ideal. This stretches me for the week. Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. So yeah, make sure you put in your spiritual ideal in that center box. I'm not a Navy SEAL, but I play one in my life. And I fangirl about David Goggins. Y'all should check him out. This dude is the real deal. He's very cool. Okay, step number 3. So we're going to select our mental ideals. Now, I'm going to read the words off, and what you're choosing is this mental ideal. This is your be attitude. It's the way you're going to be. You're going to hold this attitude in this area of your life, and it should be in accord with your spiritual ideal. So it should have a flow to it. So since I chose order, then it's, what are the attitudes that I would have to support order? And Bruce McArthur gave a question that can serve as a guide to help you think of be attitudes. And he said, what be attitude, or what attitude of being should I hold and use that is in accord with my spiritual ideal and will make this area of my life joyous? And so you want to write that selection in the circle marked mental ideals. And so these are the ones. I've got 2 slides here, so I'm going to read. They're also on the website. And he says, be loving, be self-controlled, be hopeful, be gentle, be brotherly love, be persistent, be persistent, be kind, be merciful, be truthful. Again, these are attitudes. These are mental attitudes. It's a mental disposition that you're talking about holding. Be content. Be positive. Be good. Be joyous. Be meek. Be peaceful. Be humble. Be confident. Be trustful. Be one. Be understanding. Be appreciative. Be harmonious. Be constructive. Be generous, and he's referring to being giving. Be encouraging. Be happy. Be moderate. Be sincere. Be compassionate. Be temperate. Be faithful. Be selfless. Be thoughtful. Be tolerant. Be cooperative. Be forgiving. Be disciplined. Be honest. Be a servant. Be just. Be graceful. Now, you may have not heard the type of attitude that fits for the area of your life. So it's okay to choose something that's not on this list. He tried to put together as full a list as possible, but you may think of something that's like, you know what, this attitude that wasn't on the list fits for me. So it's okay to add something that is not on the list. What I chose, and I chose from the list in this instance, I chose be meek. I chose that because with finances, there is a lot of learning that I am still doing, and I want to be teachable. And so being meek is very, very important to me. I want to dismantle the ego. That's what I want to do. I want to be a learner, and probably that's what I should have put is be a learner. Be a learner, because I have given up the label smart, and I am now a learner. Be disciplined. That's important to me. That when I establish something, and I have some pretty good disciplines, but I don't always maintain them, and so I slip in and out of discipline in terms of my finances. So be disciplined. Be generous. I feel like I'm pretty generous, but I feel like there's another level in there as a mental ideal, and I certainly want to maintain the generosity that I've developed. And so you could pick other ones. It doesn't have to stop with 3 or 4 or whatever. What you're looking for are what are those primary attitudes that I want to hold in regards to this area. So for me, I said for finances, my spiritual ideal is order. My mental ideals are to be meek, and I'm using meek in the way of calling my saying that I want to be teachable, be disciplined, and be generous. So I want to be consistent, I want to be teachable, and I want to be a giver. That's important to me. Any questions on this so far? How are we doing? We doing good? Okay. I'm going to keep it going. Any questions? Step number 4. So, your physical ideals, the way that he explains it, are what you will be doing to bring into expression or manifestation on the physical plane the spiritual and mental ideals you have set for this area of life. So if you notice, we're moving from the inside out because life is lived from the inside out. So we didn't start with what do we do about our finances? What we started with, who am I being? Well, you know what? I'm being order. Well, if I'm being order, what's the attitude of mind that I have to hold in place in order to be order? And now the physical ideals, this is going to vary wildly. And he gave a couple of guidelines that you can think about. But this is about what you're going to do. So if I'm holding the attitude of meek, right? I'm being teachable. Then what does that look like in a physical way? How does that show up? And so he gave some guides. He said the physical ideals can be expressed through the ways in which you use various aspects of your physical body or your possessions. For example, ask yourself, how can I use my ears to manifest my mental ideal of being cooperative? So I would say, how can I use my ears to manifest my mental ideal of being meek? Right? And then whatever the answer comes in, and that's what goes in there. So these physical ideals are going to have, you're probably going to come up with a lot and then narrow it down to kind of your primary ones. And he said you may wish to select several for each area of your life. And I agree. And so I want you to listen to, once you have them, you write the selection in the circle, part of the circle that's the quadrant, first quadrant 1, marked physical ideals. And so these are the things. So your ears, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your car. Again, what he's trying to do is jog your thinking as far as, okay, how do I put this to work? Well, in terms of, being meek, how would I use my eyes? Well, if I'm teachable, then what am I doing with my eyes that demonstrate that I'm teachable? Or nose, and it doesn't mean that you use all of these. Again, this is just trying to jog your creativity in terms of the activities. So your voice, you're sharing your know-how, you're sharing possessions, you're sharing facilities, your furniture, your recipes, clothes, energy, legs, feet, hands, house, face, tools, food, sex, words, song, time, arms, effort. Again, you're choosing your physical ideals. What are the things that, in an ideal way, these are the things that I do that represent the fulfillment of the mental ideals and the spiritual ideal that I have chosen. And so I tried to narrow it down, but actually when I finished, I was like, you know what, I'm going to end up going back on this personally and making sure this is what I'm really wanting. And so what I said was, I'm going to pursue big opportunity relentlessly. Pursue big opportunity relentlessly. So the reason that for me that's a physical ideal is that sometimes I pursue big opportunity, but after a good number of obstacles, that relentless goes away. So I pursue big opportunity. It just may not be always relentless. Hold myself accountable daily, right? So looking at results. This is about, listen, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Eliminate all non-producing activity. If it's not adding or establishing that order, and it doesn't fall in line with me being meek and disciplined and generous, it's got to go. Move swiftly. This is something I'm working on personally for myself as an entrepreneur. I have always had a sense that just as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to move fast. There's the pace of innovation, and so this is not. And I don't mean fast like thoughtless, but I mean swift like trusting your gut, taking the action, and taking advantage of opportunity. There's a quote, and I don't know who I originally heard say it, but I've heard it said so many times, and they say money loves speed. And I know that, when I was working in entertainment, one of the things that I remember very well is that when we were courting investors, that they were always on like a timeline because they would not allow money to sit. That when money sits, it loses value. And so there's a pace, right? There's a pace, there's a movement. And all of the entrepreneurs that I've worked with or financiers that I work with in entertainment, that there was this swiftness to their decision making. And so that's an ideal physically that I want to embody. And even with some of the stuff that I'm doing now, that same concept is coming up, which is swift movement. You cannot afford to sit still. If you run too slow, it's too hard to keep your momentum. And without that momentum, setbacks slow you down fast or more. But sometimes when you have momentums, you can go through a setback and you just blow through it because you've got this momentum. And so there's no time to sit and think about it because I'm busy on to the next opportunity, and there's no time for me to get caught up in the story of my head and what this setback means and all. Just move. Andrea says both my spiritual ideal and my mental ideal is love. It's always been about love for me, even when I was a teenager in the Church of God in Christ. Yes. Eve says my spiritual ideal is patience. Yes. Phyllis says my first quadrant, time. Her spiritual ideal, persistence. Yes. Her mental ideal, be constructive, be disciplined. Yes. Her physical ideal, energy. Yes. Good stuff. Yes. Good. So now it's time to complete the chart, right? So this is what I walked through, was just to give you a blueprint of, okay, how do I do this? And now what you want to do is go back to step one and choose another area of your life where you wish to that you want to make more joyous. You enter this on line number 2 in quadrant B. And you skip step number 2 because the spiritual ideal that you have selected applies to all areas of your life. So I think Phyllis, you said persistence, I think is what you said. And so, yeah, persistence. And so then that persistence then becomes the spiritual ideal for all of those quadrants. So order for me is for all of the quadrants as I'm working on, who I want to be? What is my ideal? What am I reaching for? Then you want, for step 3 and 4, you want to do the same thing that you did for the mental ideals and the physical ideals. And then you want to repeat this procedure for as many areas of your life for which you wish to set ideals. Now, the best part about this, and y'all hear me say all the time, this daily routine, daily routine, daily routine. You need a daily, and I recommend morning, but you could do it at night. You need a daily routine. And part of your daily routine is you need to pull out this worksheet and look at your ideals, because your ideals are not static. As you achieve them, they evolve with you. So you may get to a place, I may get to a place with order where I say, you know what? I now embody the level of order that I want to see. So now I pick a new spiritual ideal and I go do those quadrants all over again, right? And so your ideals, they grow with you. That there is, again, everything in this universe grows. Nothing grows down. Everything grows out or up, period. Everything begins small and it moves from center to circumference. Even when we look at if you are someone who believes in evolution, that we move from the amoeba, right? The was it a protozoan, whatever, but move from the single cell amoeba into larger and larger entities. Or if you're a creationist and you say, you know what, I take the Genesis story literally, that, even though I'm a New Thought Christian, I believe in creation the way it's described in Genesis chapter 1 and 2. Fine. It's still from center to circumference. It's still the same thing. It's moving from seeming nothing or small beginnings to a bright, beautiful, big, lush creation. So the ideals evolve with you, that you become more over time. And so what you really want is to set high ideals that help you break the habit of being you. And I want to tell you about this book that my boyfriend turned me on to. This is a book, I cannot stress enough how amazing this book has been, and I got to shout him out for doing that. It's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And so that's why I borrowed that from from my heading, because it was just amazing. But I'm going to tell you what he says in here. This is the author is Dr. Joe Dispenza. Some of you probably know him from What the Bleep Do We Know, and he's been in other stuff. But he says that the brain in action, with the brain in action, you repeatedly reproduce the same level of mind by reminding yourself who you think you are in reference to the outer world. Your identity becomes defined by everything outside of you, because you identify with all the elements that make up your external world. Thus, you're observing your reality with a mind that is equal to it, so you collapse the infinite waves of probabilities of the quantum field into events that reflect the same mind you use to experience your life. You create more of the same. You may not think that your environment and your thoughts are that rigidly similar and your reality so easily reproduced, but when you consider that your brain is a complete record of your past and your mind is the product of your consciousness, in one sense, you might always be thinking in the past. By responding with the same brain hardware that matches what you remember, you're creating a level of mind that is identical to the past, because your brain is automatically firing existing circuits to reflect everything you already know, have experienced, and thus can predict. When you think from past memories, meaning what you've been through, where you've been, who you talked to, all of that, you can only create past experiences. As all of the knowns in your life cause your brain to think and feel in familiar ways, thus creating knowable outcomes, you continually reaffirm your life as you know it. And since your brain is equal to your environment, since your brain is equal to your environment, right? Because the I was listening to V.S. Ramachandran, who is a phenomenal neuroscientist, and he says that our brains, like they've identified it, they can detect it, they can see it on a scan. Our brains literally on the, I don't know if it's in the prefrontal cortex or the, I don't want to get these terms wrong, but literally you have a blueprint on your brain of your life as it exists today. And so it's like when you wake up, you can remember where you are. You don't wake up disoriented, like, okay, now wait, where am I? You wake up and you remember, you remind yourself, oh, this is my environment. The problem is that most people with their ideals are equal to their environment, or worse, they're less than their environment. So this is what he says. He says, since your brain is equal to your environment, then each morning your senses plug you in to the same reality and initiate the same stream of consciousness. And so it's almost like you're in this loop of thinking and feeling. And you just thinking and feeling the same stuff, recreating the same world. And this is what makes it so hard to change, is because you're in this loop. So your ideals are so important, because your ideal, when you're not reaching for, but thinking and acting from, your ideal is what helps you get out of the rut. Your ideal is what helps you establish behavior that is not congruent with your world as it is. So this is the paragraph that I said, oh, this dude right here. He says, is this the page that I want to share with y'all? I don't think this is the one. Of course, I would lose my page. But he called this paragraph, he calls it overcoming your environment. Ah, here it is. No. This is it. He said, most people focus on three things in life: their environment, their bodies, and time. They don't just focus on those three elements, they think equal to them. But to break the habit of being yourself, you have to think greater than the circumstances of your life. Be greater than the feelings that you have memorized in your body, and live in a new line of time. If you want to change, and this is, I put a, you probably can't see it, I put like a little exclamation point, like memorize that, Sherri. If you want to change, you must have thoughts, and you must have in your thoughts an idealized self, a model that you can emulate, which is different from and better than the you that exists today in your particular environment, body, and time. Every great person in history knew how to do this, and you can attain greatness in your own life once you master the concept, basically, of thinking greater than your present circumstances. And so this is why this workshop is so special to me, and why it's so important, this work that we're doing right now, that you must have something better than who you are today that you're thinking and acting from. And it's not a reaching for outside, but there is a reaching to, or a letting out from within. And so you're thinking and acting from your ideal. So when things come up, I had something today, I gotta get a repair person out here with this air condition. When things come up, right? Order, Sherri, order. Okay, be meek, be teachable. What can we learn through this experience, right? Be disciplined, be generous, right? That and then what am I doing? Move swiftly, call them up, figure it out, get him out here, work it out. Again, it is, I'm operating from the ideal, as opposed to, gosh, I was not expecting a air condition repair. Again, operating from the ideal. Operating, thinking, and acting from the ideal. So that's why this work is so important. And I got some comments. Constance says, yeah, I love Dr. Joe. Actually shows a thought being formed within the brain. Wow. He also has a meditation that takes you apart and be a part of the universe, and then reform yourself so that you are new upon ending the meditation. Yes. This can assist in releasing any health issues as you can be reborn, renewed, which he said has been studied and tested. That's the thing, y'all. I'm saying this to us New Thought Christians. We got to get into this neuroscience, because what's exciting for us is that the experiments that they're doing are proving things that we've been teaching for centuries. Oh wow, Alita says I have heard that same thing 3 times this week. Yes. Constance says the exclamation would have been marked red hot by Revenant, or the prescription symbol. Oh, that's good. That's good. I like that. uh, okay, Olga says her spiritual ideal is persistence. Her mental ideals be persistent, be disciplined, be thoughtful. Her physical ideals holding myself accountable in a loving manner. Amen. Amen. Thank you guys so much for tonight. I hope that this was helpful. Oh, she said, and that was the thing you didn't mean to say. Yes. um, I know we're done, girl. It's 8:15. I was trying to stay inside that hour because I'm trying to honor time. So here's the thing. I need you guys to help me make this algorithm go crazy for YouTube. So if you wouldn't mind posting your ideal, in the YouTube comments, so that again, it's going to make it show up and more people will find it. The other thing I want to say to you is that this was my tip for breaking the habit of being you, is to get next to people who embody the ideals you're reaching for. So you can do that by physically getting next to someone, but you can also do that remotely, right? That just like this, none of us are in the same area. All of us are, I don't, there maybe 3 or 4 folk from LA, but most everybody else is out in other parts of the country. So this is one of the ways that we cause each other to stand on our tippy toes. But listen, I have a ton of what I call deceased friends who keep me on my tippy toes. And some of my latest fascinations are Zig Ziglar and Reverend Ike. And just reading their stuff and listening to them, I heard something Reverend Ike said that I thought was powerful. He said, just walking in here, speaking of the United Palace Cathedral, is a prosperity treatment. It made me think entirely differently about how we do the office at Up Church. That walking into the office should be a prosperity treatment, meaning that you are impressed on your mind the idea of prosperity just being in that space. So get next to people who embody the ideals that you're reaching for, but they don't have to be alive, and they don't have to be people that you really know. You can lovingly stalk somebody online. I got a bunch of folk that I do that with. So yeah, post your comments in the YouTube so we can send this algorithm through the roof. And if this workshop helped you, so first of all, please subscribe to the channel. But secondly, there's probably somebody you know who could really benefit from this. And so please take a moment to send it to them and say, hey, take a look at this. I think this will be helpful for you. All right. Thank you guys for tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Eve said, oh, Andrea says, I can't believe the time is already up. I know it did go fast, but isn't this so dope? I'm telling you, because I walked into this, reading this chapter with a negative attitude, and I thought about that woman who was the skeleton on the bench. I'm like, I'm not going to be her. But hopefully this blessed you. Definitely take a look at this book. This book is amazing. Shout out to my boo for recommending it. Thank you guys. I love and appreciate you guys so much. Yay. Have a great night. Next week we are on chapter 17, and next week we'll start doing, we'll look at where we want to go next, because there are only a few more chapters. So chapter 17 is bringing balance to your life. Bringing balance to your life. So that's where we are next week. Thank you guys. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm grateful, and I'm loving what we're doing. I feel like we're doing something good for ourselves. All right. Have a great night. God bless.